Welcome to the Embrace Her Legacy podcast, the #1 personal development classroom for millennial women, hosted by Embrace Her Legacy founder and CEO, Maria I. Melendez. Ladies, get ready to evoke your feminine confidence and be inspired to master your relationship with yourself so you can fabulously live your legacy. If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. Don't forget to visit us at embraceherlegacy.com, where you can support our mission by making a donation of any amount or sign up to become part of our community of volunteers and supporters, the Embrace Her Legacy Collective. Our vision is for every woman and every girl to defeat her inner saboteur, master her relationship with self, and live out her legacy unapologetically. Enjoy the podcast.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the spring 2021 season of the Embrace Her Legacy podcast. Y'all know what it is. This is your #1 personal development classroom for millennial women of color, and it's Women's History Month, so I decided to like just set things off with two powerful women and talk about all things women empowerment. We're going to still talk about whether or not women empowerment is a reality or not. And I'm here with two of my sister girlfriends, and we got Miss Dana Blair. She's a long time podcast. I can't stand you, Dana. I can't take her nowhere. Like, those of y'all who are listening on the audio, if you see what Dana's doing right now, she's over here being Dana, being herself. Dana's a wonderful host, producer, and on-air personality. Y'all know her at Just Dana Blair. We have my other girl, Ahyiana Angel, podcast producer, host, and author at Ahyiana.Angel. Ladies, introduce yourselves. Let the people know how you're doing. All that jazz.
Hi.
It's like I don't even know what to say. I'm like, hey y'all.
I never like that good intro. I don't know what to say. We here.
I know.
You know what's so funny? So for y'all are on the audio and y'all can't see us, like all of us are in blonde hair, short blonde hair, and black turtleneck and black, and it's like, and Ahyiana serving us with the red lip. Like, hello, it's like we look.
She's always serving.
Always serving. We really
always serving. I knew I had to show up. Because I was like, oh, it's video too. Here we go. Okay.
Yes.
I love it. So on the topic of women empowerment, I just want to give the audience context of how we met each other. So Dana, I met back in '88. No.
That's how it feels.
Dana, I met maybe about 10 years ago through another sister girlfriend. And Dana came to my first Embrace Her Legacy event. I think that was like 2012. And we immediately hit it off. And then I met Ahyiana through Dana. At Dana's event, Dana, this was when your launch happened for I Have Never Been That Girl.
That was what, 2015?
That was like 2016. Oh,
it was a while ago. It was like 2015, 2016, somewhere in there.
Oh,
it was warm. Yes.
It was warm. It was warm. I definitely had on a peach number. Yes, I remember. It was.
You know what? I could tell you exactly what year did Prince die?
2016.
It was 2016 because the outfit I had on that whole day, we had to, I remember because my mom flew into town for the launch. We filmed Essence Live that day. And I remember sitting in the makeup chair and the whole show changed because they just announced that Prince had died. That's how I remember. It was the same day.
Wow, that's
cool. It was the same day.
That's
yeah.
Awesome. How time flies. And we were all in New York at that time. Now we're literally, 3 of us is in different time zones. So we, the world of virtual reality really works, to some extent. So ladies, just so we could talk about like my inspiration behind the episode and why I specifically wanted to talk to you two ladies. Both of you have really managed to become super successful. Yes, you are. I know Dana will roll her eyes. Dana, she'll be like, me? Yes, Dana. Yes, you. Yes. And you have navigated through some tough spaces working with other women, especially, unfortunately, I hate to say, when it comes to working with other women of color. And I'm speaking from my experience. That's not your experience, and you can also share. And I've had amazing experiences, like my team, my day-to-day team, now are young women of color. My board of directors were all either women or women of color. Like, I have it. To couple that to say, although I've had my negative experiences, I've had more positive ones. But then lately, I had been talking to a lot of women who were experiencing those negative experiences, right? And that competition in the workplace, and then how that plays a role in relationships. And I remember one day I was watching The Real Housewives, and I was just, of Atlanta, and I was looking at how somebody was coming from. I don't know if you could see the new cast member, Drew Sidora. Who was on the game, and just what they were going in. Well, one of the other cast members was going in on her wig, and then the way people were just talking about each other's families and husbands. I was like, oh my God. And I don't know how y'all feel. I'm kind of overwhelmed with seeing so many people profit off of Black women, that narrative that Black women just can't get along, right? So I'm just like, well, I've experienced both. So I know the two of you have experienced both. Y'all are a part of my women empowerment homegirl. I know I can call on for anything cool, I can shoot on an email, she's gonna get back to me. I can text Dana in the middle of the night, she's gonna get back to me. Y'all are
because she don't sleep.
She's a part of that crew, huh?
Dana's a part of the I don't know how to sleep. Literally, I just told Dana before we started recording. Now I'm going on a trip, and I'm like, meet me there. She's like, okay, send me the details. So we have such a rapport over there, and I met the both of y'all in those spaces of women empowerment community, especially in the workplace. So I just wanted to talk to two fabulous women who I respect and who I know are going to bring such amazing just insight to the conversation. And maybe this is a healing and a learning conversation, because I've noticed that the war that a woman has within herself, that's normally why she's out here warring with the other woman around her. So I'm going to start real quick with a research article called Women in Competition and what it said. And I want to get your feedback on that. So it says that women compete, compare, undermine, and undercut one another. At least that is the prevailing notion of how we interact. Feeling on guard around other ladies is normal for a lot of women, and it's exhausting. The competition can be rooted in wanting to make themselves more appealing or one up other women. It can start from youth, as you're so tall like the boys while I'm so nice and small, or I'm growing through puberty while you still look the same when you're younger. So the three theories around this research article are that theory one, natural selection to explain our modern behavior, says that women need to protect themselves from physical harm. So indirect aggression keeps us safe while lowering the stock of other women. Theory two, we aren't competing with other women ultimately, but with ourselves, how we think of ourselves. And for many of us, we look at other women and see instead a version of ourselves that is better, prettier, smarter, or something more. We don't see the other woman at all. Theory three, as women come to consider being prized by men, their ultimate source of strength, worth, achievement, and identity, they are compelled to battle other women for the prize. So I just want your feedback. Can you relate to any of this? Has any of this been your experience? What do you got to say about the theories and what the article is saying? Ooh,
you just said a lot.
I know.
Looks like she is bubbling. She's like, This is what the article said. This is not what I said.
I don't know if you want me to go first or what. I think women are definitely, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this, I think women and men do approach competition differently. I think it's just the way we are, right? Period. And I do feel that I'll say people who identify as, and I'm trying to use proper PC terms, the traditional or what we've been brought up to believe are gender roles. And I do feel that women of color play that competition game differently than non-women of color. And I say that because we're held to different standards and we have different boundaries. There are things that non-women of color can say in a boardroom, and they're considered sassy or they're considered go-getters. And if I say it, I'm the angry Black bitch in the room. You know what I'm saying? Or Dana has an attitude problem, or Dana's ghetto, and I can use the exact same wording, you know? And I think that for me, I think there are healthy forms of competition and there are unhealthy forms of competition. If you grew up in sports or things of that nature, healthy forms of competition are often like, oh, they're faster than me, but I'm going to try to, you know, I use them as a bar to get faster, like as fast as they are. And then there's unhealthy where you're tearing each other down or you're tearing yourself apart. I don't know where it comes from. I think society plays a huge role in it, especially with women, especially with, you know, when it comes to your youth and your attractiveness or lack thereof and how you may or may not use it. You know, I'll be 40 soon, and I find men try to make me feel bad about that. And I'm like, I've lost so many friends before they turn 32. You know, I remember when I turned 32, I lost like 5 friends within 4 months of each other. You know, I was like, I consider it a blessing every day I have. Like, so I'm rambling, but I do feel that the nuances in society play a huge role in it. We pin celebrities against each other. People try to pin Mariah Carey against J-Lo, which is against Beyonce. And like, and you're like, why can't they all just be bomb ass women?
Right.
And sometimes they don't even know each other to have like a true problem with each other. I agree with you that it's a societal thing. And I think sometimes we allow it to get into our heads and then we play into it. And it's also, it goes back to just that conversation of the relationship that you have with yourself and how that may be manifesting in how you treat other people. Because, you know, I think we've all been guilty of creating a narrative in our head about someone and maybe how they feel about us, but there is no truth. There is no proof in that. It's just something that we created, probably based on experiences that we've had. And sometimes it's hard for people to have that self-awareness so that you can check yourself before you go down that road and then create something, namely tension or a problem where there is none. You know, I think theories, they sound good, but I think because we're all unique individuals, everybody's origin of how they operate with women could come from a completely different place. You know, there's probably stuff that you can't even put your finger on because the person who's exhibiting it can't even put their finger on it. They don't even know what's going on with themselves. And I think that's one of the other things too, is that as young women, we're not really taught to discover ourselves and understand ourselves. Men aren't either. None of us are, right? We're taught to execute off of certain learnings, but not to really learn ourselves. And so I think if there was more emphasis put on learning yourself and appreciating yourself and understanding yourself, the way that we show up as young adults and ultimately in our relationships with men and women, but namely women, because we're having that conversation, I think we would see differences if we were really more conscious and aware of self, really.
Wow.
Absolutely. I think you put that eloquently. And I think also as women, and I can only speak as a woman of color, you're not given certain liberties and flexibilities and freedoms to discover who you are. You're just not. Like, I remember growing up, I make it sound like I'm gonna start saying back in my day, but like a gap year between high school and college, that's not something we're talking about. Like, you know, like that to go discover yourself and find yourself. My father was like, you either gonna find yourself in Louisiana, or you're gonna find yourself in the military, or you're gonna find yourself in college. But you're gonna find, I can tell you where you're going. You know what I'm saying? Like, absolutely. And those freedoms to just explore your sexuality, to explore your appearance, to, when I cut all of my hair off, I was so nervous about what my family would say. And then, and the assumptions with every tattoo that I get and all of these different things and things that just felt organic and natural to who I am as a person. I feel like we often don't have those liberties to explore our sensuality, our sexuality, our voice, and how we want to show up in the world. It sounds great to tell someone, show up who you as your authentic full self, but the reality is we can't always do that.
right? And then we're subject to judgment.
I was just gonna
what
say
we feel,
that.
yeah, because we're trying to be a version of ourselves that we feel is authentic, but then you have those questions in your mind like, are people going to accept me, or how are they going to receive me? And then other women are judging other women because maybe you're more in tune with yourself and you're doing things that they want to do, but they're not confident or comfortable enough to do it, and then so they project their insecurities onto you, or their envy onto you because of what you're doing that they're not doing, and that manifests itself in a negative dynamic versus hey girl, I love what you're doing, I love how you're doing it, you know, how did you do XYZ, you know, instead of being inquisitive and asking questions and kind of endearing yourself to the person. Sometimes the automatic default is to be like, she thinks she this, she thinks she that, or you know, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I think.
And what's wrong if you do think you're all those things?
Right? What if I do think I'm all that in a bag of chips? And you know what?
That ain't got nothing to do with you. That has nothing to do.
If I think I'm a bag of chips, but I think for me, like, and I have a question about this, but I do want to comment what you said, Z, about showing that authenticity and exploring that sexuality. I think oftentimes women will shame other women. We are quick to shame other women like that. That really, and even whether it comes to your sexuality, how you dress, how you parent, mommy shaming is a really
very real
thing, you know. And I'm like, what's at the core of that? Where we say, hey girl, go do your thing, you know, black girl magic, sister girlfriend, whatever, you know, hashtag is relevant at the moment. But then when that woman does, she's immediately shamed for it. I don't think I've experienced shaming ever from, or I probably experienced it more from other women. And it's like, how dare you? And who do you think you are? And it's just like, wow, you know? So I'm just like, you know, just to just say, sometimes you're right, Ahyiana, that it can be just your experiences of trying. And then what happens is you tend to feel like maybe I got to put a guard up, right?
Yeah.
Now you experienced it. You get what I mean? Now you're like, all right, I can't trust you. Do you feel like you need to put your guard up in certain spaces with other women?
I think naively, I don't.
Naive. Expound upon that.
And I realized at a certain point when one of my good girlfriends said to me, I think sometimes people look at you and expect you to be different than you are, but because you're who you are all the time, it's surprising to them. And that kind of gave me something to think about, because I didn't have a certain awareness and a guard about me to where when I walk into certain spaces, I feel like I have to present myself away or fit into a certain mold because people have a certain assumptions about me. I never operated like that. But when she said that, it brought it to my attention. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, right? Because then when somebody brings it to your attention, now you have an awareness of it, and there's the potential for you to act upon that awareness versus just moving how you were moving, you know? And so I feel like I don't carry a guard, but I am quick to be like, if I catch a vibe about somebody, or if I feel like somebody's giving me energy like they don't really fool with me like that, then I'm like, it's cool. We don't have to rock with each other. Nice to meet you. Take care. You know, I am that person that's easy to move on about my business, though. I'm not going to sit up here and try to make somebody like me or beg somebody to like me, especially if I know that there's nothing behind it, because I don't know this person from a can of paint. So why would you dislike me? You know what I'm saying? And I think there's something to this too. Not everybody is for everybody.
Amen.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it don't even have anything to do with the fact that we women, just sometimes everybody's personality is just not going to click. And we should force ourselves to click with people just because this person is a woman. I'm going to try to, you know, click with her and establish a relationship. No, maybe she just ain't my type of people. And that's fine too. So no,
absolutely.
I don't put a guard up.
I co-sign everything Ahyiana just said. I think my level of comfort within myself has really just grown exponentially over the last like 4 or 5 years. I think stepping in front of the camera had a large role to do with that, because you have some people already criticizing you who just don't know you. I don't have my guard up per se. I know there's certain rooms where I have to be more intellectually on than others, but I don't necessarily have my guard up, because when I leave the room, I'm still going to be Dana, you know, and vice versa. Now, you don't get to come up into my space and into my spirit and wreak havoc. Like Ahyiana said, like, I know how to draw that line. You know what I mean? And you're right. I'm myself all the time. I'm goofy, silly all the time. I'm intense all the time in terms of my directness. This is who I am. I'm not a caricature. I'm not a personality. When the camera turns off, I'm still Dana, you know? And you're right, that does take people off guard. That catches people off guard who aren't true to who they are. And they look at you living your life. Let me back up. The best advice I got when I left the show and I moved to LA was from a very good friend of mine. She said, people are going to make your decisions that you make about your life about them. Because it's a mirror. They're going to say, well, how they're going to take it as like, you know, maybe they're not living their life a certain way or whatever the case may be. How are you being bold and courageous or moving out of fear? However you're moving, what does that say about them? They're going to assess themselves in that way. So I find me just showing up and being myself sometimes can trigger something in someone else. And either they're going to process like, whoa, hold on, where's that coming from? Or they're going to attack. And I just think that's pure instincts, you know, that fight or flight. And I'm not saying I'm always 100% comfortable. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I can't be any other way. And if you disrespect me, I'm gonna let you know. But I will let you into my space, and I'm gonna let you into who I am authentically. And I hope that you could show up in the same capacity. And if you can't, that's not my burden to bear. You know, and I don't like everybody, so everybody shouldn't like me. Now, that doesn't mean you have to kick me on the way out, but we don't have to stay in each other's, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not here to tear you down because I don't like you. I'm okay, we'll just keep our distance. See you from across the room, what's up? Cool, bet, boom. You know, we don't have to do all that.
That part, Z, you just hit and both of you said it. Not everybody's meant to like everybody, and not everybody is for everyone. You understand what I mean? But I think there needs to be more conversations of that being okay. And like you said, don't kick me when I'm on my way out the door. I think what the conversations tend to be, because of whatever it is that's residing in me, and you have the courage to be your authentically self, and the shame in me wants to shame you. So now, because I'm warring within myself, now I have to go and beat her down. It's like, can't you just like not like her and leave it at that, or not really want to engage with her like that, instead of having to tear her down how she's looking, how much money she's making, who's following her social media, who she's sleeping with, who she slept with, what happened in the 3rd grade. Like, sometimes when I hear the things that people bring up, I'm like, now you are really talking about what she did in 1972? Right. 2021, you know, it's just that stuff that's brewing within themselves. So the both of you have navigated some amazing spaces, right? What would you say your overall experience has been with working with other women? And Ahyiana, you worked in a very male-dominated space.
Yeah.
Coming from the NBA. So I really want to hear your feedback in working in those industries where it's male dominated, and maybe, just maybe, there's a heightened level of competition amongst women, if that's your experience.
I think it showed up for me. Okay, I'll say this. At the beginning of my career, I felt very supported. I felt very seen and nurtured in a way. You know, I was young, and the women who I was around, they recognized, hey, she's fresh out of school, and we want to do everything that we can to uplift her, as well as guide her and show her the way. I remember my very first boss. I was an executive assistant to the senior vice president of marketing at the Game Show Network. And she basically ran all of marketing at the Game Show Network, but everything fell under her. Promotions fell under her, creative services fell under her, everything, PR. And she gave me the freedom. She said, as long as everything is taken care of at my desk, she gave me the freedom to work on any projects that I wanted to that fell under her reign, if you will. And that was my first example of a woman saying, I want to see you excel, succeed, grow. And any way that I can be a part of that, I'm willing to do that. But I will say, I must add this in here, and whoever feels however about it, that's fine. She was a lesbian, and she had a partner, and eventually they ended up having a child and everything. And she had a very more so a masculine presence about her. And I don't know if that played into her personality as well as how she managed, because I never felt pettiness from her. I never felt like micromanaged. I never felt like she was being overbearing about anything, where she very well could have been, because I was her assistant. Yet she let me flourish in all these different areas. You guys, I traveled for some weeks on a whole PR campaign as her assistant. She allowed me to do that. And so I don't know if a part of her lifestyle outside of work played into her personality and who she was at work and how she presented herself. But then as I continued to grow my career and got into more male dominated spaces, I would say that there was a decent amount of women that I work with, and I can't call out anything from everybody around me that was negative. I think for the most part, everybody just felt like they had to be on top of their game. That was just the number one thing. But I did experience some micromanaging and some petty things and things that I felt like women would do that men would not do. So that's a little bit tricky, because also you don't want to come to somebody and try and associate their behavior with gender, which I wouldn't have done that, because I don't think I would have, even had the thought process to do that at the time. But now looking back, I can see some things that are plainly characteristics of what women would do, and men just wouldn't do that. They just wouldn't even, because we hold on to stuff and we want to talk about stuff at length, and we think the conversation is over, but then we want to bring it up again and that kind of stuff. Whereas I feel like men, when they say they let it go and it's done, it's done. Workplace or other, for the most part.
Agreed.
So that's kind of been my experience. It was kind of a mixed bag, but for the most part, I'll say that, there was pretty much supportive and ambitious women around me who I didn't feel, actually, I'm lying. There was something in between where I did catch a whole bunch of cattiness, but that's a whole nother story.
You know what the next question was about cattiness. So you might as well, if you want to share, you can share. If you don't, you don't, or at least share what the experience taught you.
You know what the experience taught me? So the quick and short of it is that I'm not a snooper, but I have learned to follow my intuition, and my intuition told me to look into the email inbox of a person that was more senior than me, because I had access to it, because they asked me to get something off their computer. And so I did. And then something said, look in the inbox for email specifically from my manager. And I did. And I found an email, very recent email, where she called me a bitch. And and she was questioning them.
In writing?
Right.
That's HR 101.
Yeah. And I wish that I had known what I know now. Number one, my heart was beating, because I knew I shouldn't have been looking at this person's email, even though I had every right to, but I knew what I was kind of looking for in terms of like not what they asked me. And so when I saw this, I was like, into myself, I was like, that bitch, And so, but I already knew, I had an idea of who she was already, which is why I even looked for email exchanges between the two of them. And so when I read that, I knew that everything that I was thinking and feeling was confirmed. And so then I knew how to treat her moving forward. And luckily, I never had to actually see her again, because of the way everything worked out, and I ended up moving to New York and all of that. But it definitely showed me that people will smile in your face, but you must watch them, because people will some things sometimes that you don't even see coming, and there can be a whole campaign going on behind your back through no fault of your own, and you're subject to whatever happens. Because in the workplace, when they have created alliances and leverage, giving themselves leverage, unfortunately, if they target you, good person or bad person, doesn't matter what your performance is, there's nothing you can do about it if you don't know.
Girl, you are preaching to the choir. I wanted to share to the audience my experiences with working with other women is how Embrace Her Legacy was birthed. So if I take out back 12, 13 years when I first came into the music industry, and again, Ahyiana, when you said naively did not have your guard up, that's exactly how I felt. I'm coming in, I'm seeing all these other women who look like me. I'm like, this is great. And as an intern, I'm a college student. And boy, oh boy, did I have something coming in for me. And the way these women would talk about interns, what they had on, and you know, her relationship status. Oh, I can't believe she has a man. And it's like, what? Like the things grown women were saying about this, you know, the interns. And I remember just being flabbergasted. I'm like, oh, so this is what we talking and this is what we're doing. And in that time, like other interns and entry level women, like you said, Ahyiana, you working as an executive assistant. I started working as an executive assistant as well. We kind of became each other's support group. And then I ended up working for some amazing women. My bosses, when I went from intern to employee in the music business, my boss was amazing. And she's still someone I consider a dear mentor to this day. I am because I want to shout out to you, Kathy. I know she probably would be like, don't say my name, but I love her anyway. But shout out to her. And she took me under her wing. And I remember being so scared to work for her because she was a VP. And these other women weren't as senior. She was an SVP. I'm sorry. She was a senior VP. And these other women that I was interning around, they weren't at that senior level. And I was like, oh my gosh, if they were horrible, what's it going to be like working for her? And she was a complete antithesis, like you said, Ahyiana, going on campaigns and traveling. And she would just always tell Maria, don't be so scared. But I had kind of been almost like traumatized. I was like, do you not understand what these girls? And I remember there being a campaign about, I don't want to get into specifics, but a campaign about trying to hold me back from being promoted. And at the time, I'm a college student. All I want is a job. We're in the middle of a recession. Like, how dare you try to hold me back from getting a job? It's like 2007, 2008. So in that, I said, wait, I got to do something about this. I have to have these conversations. And that's kind of how Embrace Her Legacy was birthed, because I felt so alone, because I didn't come from a world where I was taught about navigating the workplace and alliances and all this other stuff. I was just told, you go to work, you work hard, you get a paycheck. But there's so much other stuff that goes into relationship building and crossing your T's and dotting your I's and covering your ass and all this other stuff that I literally did not know. And granted enough, like I never let those experiences like burn me in the long run. Like I used it as my stepping point to say, I'm going to be somebody different. So any intern that worked for me, any assistant, anyone who knows how adamant I am about empowering and mentoring and making the experience more of a coaching experience if you work for me, as opposed to me beating you up, you know, when you make a mistake or humiliate and shame you. Like I remember times we were humiliated. Like we would be like, if you got the rapper's lunch order wrong, you were humiliated in front of this rapper. You know what that is at 22 years old? You know, big rappers in the room, and all you're doing at 22 years old, trying to get the rapper his right order of Wendy's, and you get it wrong, and then manager X is like, da-da-da-da. You're like, oh my goodness. And those are my experiences. I hope that, you know, it's not like that anymore and those environments aren't as toxic, but that was really my experience in the workplace. What about you, D?
I worked in some very interesting places. I would say that I learned to trust, like you said, Ahyiana, to trust my gut and my instincts more. you have those feelings and those instincts for a reason. And I think oftentimes we try to reason with them and understand where they come from. And we stay in situations and stay naive longer than we need to. So that's something I want to say. But I realized that as I grew and shifted in certain aspects of my career, nice, silly, funny, goofy Dana now became a threat. So there were relationships I had with people where I didn't change, but I realized once my role changed, they changed towards me. It was a feeling. Some people feel like you're taking something from them. Some people will say, oh, you acting different now. And you're like, only thing that changed was my title. You know what I mean? And you can't let that throw you off your game, because you might be like, oh my God, am I really acting different? If you get a promotion, you may have to assert yourself a little bit more, especially now if you have direct reports or things of that nature. That's just the nature of the beast. So I've experienced that as I grew, some people felt like my growth said something about them, or they changed towards me. And I've had internal campaigns before to challenge my role. And I remember specifically one time a person had launched an internal campaign to get me fired. And I suspected something. And I'm trying to be vague with my language here. And a person I reported to pulled me into their office, and they indirectly tried to tell me what was happening. And they were like, but don't worry, I stand by you. And I was like, stand by me?
Yeah, like,
why you gotta stand by me? Did I pick a side and I didn't know? Why are you standing by me? And then they indirectly were they were like, well, someone feels, and I named the person. And they looked at me, they're like, how do you know? I said, because they did this, they've been moving like this, and this. And I found out that the person had several meetings with other people. And then I also, like, throughout the next 1 to 2 weeks, different people would pull me in their office and tell me, give me a heads up on this person. And I basically said, I was like, yo, if they want my job, tell them come take it. Ooh. Like I got to that point where who am I I don't feel like I should always have to cower down. I'm going to treat you with respect. I need you to treat me with respect. And that's just something that came, not every corporate culture is the same. Okay. I'm just saying where I was in that time, that was my answer. And I think also too, when you work in entertainment, when you work in sports, these are industries unlike any other. There are so many different layers to it. It's glitzy, it's shiny, it's pretty, but it can also be just as ugly. And that was my experience. And I also found that once people felt like I couldn't do something for them, like once I was no longer hosting the show regularly, a lot of people's respect, and I view it as respect. Respect's a trigger for me. The way in which they treated me changed. There were people who I thought were in my circle, people who I thought were my friends. And once my position changed, they completely disappeared. There are those people who I could tell were temperature checking, like, let me linger in case this broad really comes around and she does something else. Yeah. You know? And then there are the people who came out of left field who supported me in ways I never would have expected. You know what I mean? But I definitely say, as I've gotten older and I'm more advanced in my career and more varied in my career experiences, I trust my gut. Like something don't feel right, stranger danger. I could be polite, I could be cordial, but I'm watching you by the copier. I'm watching you, you know, because I'm going to say this. I posted on my social media maybe 2 weeks ago. I don't know. It's COVID. Time is whatever at this point. A clip. It's one long thing. A clip from Tiana Taylor's, her Instagram live, where she announced that she was no longer going to do music. And she spoke for quite some time, but there's the clip I posted talks about, I'm so tired of the fake women empowerment. That was my next question. She says that clip on my social media, on my Instagram alone, has over 30,000 views right now. And so many comments of people co-signing it. So this is not a unique experience. Right. My frustration is, you don't have to rock with me. You don't have to support me. I get annoyed when I see you talking about uplift each other on your social platforms and as you're branding and your messaging, and that's not how you move in real life. Who have you reached back and pulled up? You ain't got to pull me up, but who have you reached back and pulled up? Who are you really supporting? Or are you just doing it because you feel like it looks good for your personal brand? That's when I have an issue. If you're going to be a motherfucker, excuse my language, can we curse? I don't know. But if you're going to be a motherfucker, be a motherfucker. If that's who you are, don't be one thing here. And then on social media, you're like,
I hate you. I hate you. I hate you.
But you understand what I'm saying.
Man, yeah. I did a whole episode on my podcast about it, a couple years ago. I just said, and it just came to me after similar thoughts and experiences. I was just like, women's empowerment is a scam because all of y'all are not really trying to empower other women. And I know by how you are moving, if you were moving different, there would be no question about it. But you feel like this is a good look, so you do it. And you act a certain way, you say certain things. But really, let's also talk about the women who claim women's empowerment all day, every day. But when it comes down to it, the only women that you empower are your friends. If I'm not your friend, I am not going to be empowered by you. The only people you put on are your friends. And so that is also triggering for me too, because I know I've seen a lot of these women do that. And they put on these elaborate things to engage women, the average woman, but it's just to get her money. It's just social buy-in. You are a number to them, because if that wasn't the case, when you emailed them, they would have been like, oh, sis, I do know somebody I could connect you with. Whereas 2 chance to 1, if you email them, it's going to be crickets.
It's the truth. It's the truth. And I'm going to tell you, to even build upon what you were saying, they uplift a person who they feel can lift them back in return. They're not really uplifting. And I'm going to tell you right now, there are a lot of people I don't mess with, and I don't mess with them because I don't think they're a good person, or we have beef in the streets. I don't mess with them because I don't know where you stand. Right? I can't do wishy-washy. I can't do hokey pokey. Either you in or you out. Left foot in, left foot out. What we doing? So, but I will say though, there are people who I've recommended for jobs who I don't even speak to. But the marketing aspect of me is like, so-and-so will be a good host for that. I'm not the right host for that. They would be a good host for that because they can do this, and this. Like, I understand the business side of it as well. The person who I think should have, gotten X, Y, and Z job, I'll tell them. I'll be like, no, that I don't know anything about cars. Why do you want me to host a tech car event? I could barely cross the street by myself. No, that's not for me. But you know who would be good for that? So-and-so and so-and-so. They can give you what good content and what you're looking for. Do I feel like that is always reciprocated? No. Does it have to be? Not necessarily. But I think, especially as women and women of color, we don't talk about it because we feel the need to protect ourselves. We don't want to air out each other's dirty laundry. But the reality is we all have these conversations in our own groups at separate times, individually, not on camera. And that's the part that burns my ass. It's like, if you're going to be a certain way, be a certain way. Don't put out in your messaging that you're something that you're not. Because if I buy that and I realize you're not that, then that's the problem. Don't sell me laundry detergent. I come to find out you a steak. That's not what I bought.
Dana, you kill me with your Dana-ism. She said laundry detergent, take tea. And y'all, let me tell you, something's in the atmosphere, because the fact that we got on all black, all got the same haircut, we are all talking. I'm like, that's what I was just about to say. We're talking the same questions. I have to my skin crawls when I see that. And it's like these women empowerment brunches and conference. I'm like, sis, you are nothing but a mean girl. Or you empower people with, not only you can capitalize it, it's beneficial to your look. So because this person has many, many followers, let me have this person come in and talk and speak on my panel, knowing she's a hot mess of a mean girl and she was just throwing somebody's wig the other day. But that's good for you. You want to have a women empowerment lunch And that's what you want to have, because you're not doing it for the woman empowerment. You're doing it for the look of it all. And D, I remember one time, and I won't say the person's name, and there was somebody I wanted to reach out to you. And D is will tell me like it is, not how I want it to be. She's like, no, Maria, she only want to mess with big names. And this person professes women empower. She's like, and lo and behold, I reached out, crickets.
Because you know what? Let me tell you what a lot of people forget. And I've always thought I should write a book about this.
You should.
I've been in entertainment, whether it's on the marketing side or in front of the camera, since 2005, December of 2005. Before that, I was in theater, and a lot of my theater friends are now, actors, actresses, TV, film, that sort of thing. I had hair. I looked like a completely different person with hair. I was the sales assistant. I was the up and coming marketing person who just finished grad school. I've been all of these different invisible roles where I see how some of y'all treat people. And it's not, I have to put my foot down in a leadership capacity. It's you're ugly on the inside. Or there's something going on with you. Like, you don't have to speak to people like that. Like you were saying, I've seen people get papers thrown in their face. I've seen all kinds of crazy things. I've been on the receiving end of some of that. And when I shaved all my hair off, people remember you now. When I started having what they felt was the ability to get them exposure, they treated me differently. And I'm like, I've met you before. You've actually been very mean and disrespectful. Not only once, because we're all allowed a bad day. We're all allowed a bad day.
Yeah.
But you are consistently this person.
This is who
this is who you are. This is who you are. Because we all have bad days. We're human beings first and foremost having this experience. But people forget that have forgotten a lot of times that they've come across my path multiple times. Let me tell you something. I'm a true Capricorn woman. I can name the instance. I can tell you what you had on. Okay. And where we were. I can tell you. So yeah, so sometimes I'm like, yeah, Maria, no, that juice ain't worth the squeeze.
Right.
And I do it with a lot of friends.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. Like, I've been around for a long time as well, and have encountered and crossed paths with a lot of people, from just your regular schmegular people to, your celebrity-esque type people or what have you. And my memory is not as good as yours, Dana, but when somebody does something that's a little off, I'm like, that was you. I remember that,
Mm-hmm.
And it's always very funny too, when people selectively choose to remember you when they think that you could do something for them. And this is where the self-work comes in though, because I used to be that person that would hold grudges against people, and and I've had to do my own work so that I don't try to make people account for that bad behavior, because it's not my place to make it, you know what I'm saying? And in certain people's instances, they may not even remember how they acted or what have you. And I'm not your parent. It's not my job to go around teaching you your lesson of the day to make you remember how you cut the fool. And now I'm that same person you cut the fool with. Like, I can't slap your hand. You a grown person. So you know what I'm saying? If that's still who you are, I'm gonna let you be who you are, and you gonna find yourself caught up in that on the wrong end of that one day. And that's what it is. And I've had to, just being in a space of interviewing people and whatnot, if I'm being real, that's where I had to realize, let some of that stuff go, because some of these people may not be may not have always been the best person to other people or to you, but you can't hold on to some of that stuff. You also have to give people grace and allow them to grow, and maybe they're not the same version of them that they were when you had that encounter.
Absolutely.
What have you,
Absolutely. And based upon how they come sorry, I didn't mean to step on you, but I was saying, based on how they come to the table, you'll know if they're growing or not. Because like I said, we all have bad days. We all make mistakes. We all have circumstances that affect how we show up. You could have had an ailing parent. You could have had a bad fight with your partner. You could have had, I don't know, just got audited. I don't know. Things happen. But you could tell by the way the person shows up if their energy is different, if they're growing, or if they're even interested in like just trying to show up their best self, like, you know, over time. You're absolutely right. And that's personal growth too. So I do hold some grudges though. I ain't gonna lie.
I mean, me too. And some people like, we just nah.
You're not fooling with
Nah, B.
Yeah.
I ain't messing with you.
You show me who you
I'm
are.
good.
I believe you. That's
Yeah.
good. So I know we got to wrap things up. So I just wanted to just anything that you want to share about ways we can tangibly support one another as women.
I would say that the best thing that you could do is be aware of how you interact with other women, especially when you are not in need of something. Show up for people the way that you would want them to show up for you. Don't always operate out of expectation, because to me, that's the best way that we could be support for each other, is when you're not in need of something, but you can still show up for somebody. That's, to me, that's something that'll go a long way in terms of us being able to just organically support each other, versus always having to feel this tension and, you know, like, oh, I'm only supporting you if you supporting me, or this or that, or what have you. That's just one thing that comes to mind for me. That's how I always try to be. If it's within my power to be able to do something for you, hook you up or whatever, then that's what I try and do. I just try and operate like that.
I want to be Ahyiana when I grow up. First of all, I just want to say that whenever. I tell people all the time, I'm growing. I ain't grown. I'm not there yet. I'm not that mature. You are so insightful and intelligent. And I just like, I want to be like her. I want to be like her. I would say have care in your transparency. Like, if I fully expect, if I'm slipping, either one of y'all to pick up the phone or text me or email me and say, yo, D, like, what's going on with such and such, and do it with care and like an authenticity where you want to figure it out before you jump my case or before you dismiss me, or if you want to see me be better, right? Like, I launched my online class today. I had 2 different people like text me. They're like, oh, wait, there's a misspelling on such and such, but it's a great job. Or, you know what? Have you ever thought of reaching out to so-and-so to see if you can partner with them on this? That's great. You could have said, well, if you was going to do something, you know, you could have done this. Like, that's not helping me. So I just think like carrying your transparency. And I think also we all have to realize, no matter where we are in our careers, none of us have it all figured out. And if someone does come to us in a transparent, caring way, just to provide insight and benefit, that we be open to receiving it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's always applicable to our situation. You can take what you need and what you don't, but just try to be open to that and not look at it as like you said, like a hand slapping, harsh criticism, but maybe this person really is just trying to like, let me drop it, you know, put this in your ear, sis, so you can be better. So that would be kind of what I would pass along.
I love it. And I would say too, just invest in other women, whether it's your time, your money, your energy, your resources, you know, and you don't have to humiliate them, and be a volunteer, be a mentor. Like, there's so much, you know, embraceherlegacy.com. You can come, you can donate, you can support, you can volunteer, you can do everything, because we support the next generation of young women. But just being the woman that you want women to be for you. That's that you wanted woman growing up to, you know, that I agree with you, Ahyiana. Just being who you want someone to be to you, to your daughter, to your sister, to your cousin.
Yes.
Be that person to the people in your community. And you never know how your words, even of encouragement, can just help, and just say, nah, sis, I see you doing your thing, a text. And I'm congratulating Dana. So my last question is, y'all have amazing things going on. So tell the people how to follow, where to sign up, where to listen to the podcast, all the things y'all have going on to make sure that we support you.
I was gonna say, I don't know where I'm at. No, at justdanablair.com, or on Instagram at justdanablair. I can only do like one social media platform at a time, people. Okay, so I can barely comb my hair. I can't do more. This is what I can do. This is my capacity. So only on Instagram at just Dana Blair. And then I have a new online course on public speaking and interviewing skills. So if you want to be a better public speaker, whether that's in the boardroom, whether that's starting your own podcast, you're trying to elevate yourself in your career. And a lot of companies are making you pushing their leadership to do panels and moderating and that sort of thing at conferences or internally or in the media. This would, be the course for you. And it's Talk It Like You Walk It. Talk It Like You Walk It course.com, because a lot of us can walk the walk and are really smart and bright and experts in our certain areas, but we don't necessarily have the confidence to talk it and to share that. So Talk It Like You Walk It.com and Talk It Like You Walk It course.com. And the links on at Just Dana Blair Instagram as well. So.
Ooh, that's exciting, Dana. Yes, girl. And your delivery is always so amazing. So I'm sure they're going to learn a ton from you.
You're so kind. I'm telling you, you're my boo.
It's true. So I'm like Dana, I can only do one of the socials and really show up. And sometimes I don't even be showing up, but I'm on Instagram at Ahyiana.angel. You can find me at AhyianaAngel.com. That's AHYIANA Switch, Pivot, or Quit podcast. And I also have a book out called Quit Playing Small. And those are the things.
Ahyiana has amazing podcast, Switch, Pivot, Quit. And
it's so good.
Yes. And I want to share just the podcast journey. And Ahyiana, I know me and you launched our podcast around the same time a couple of years ago. And you were a godsend, because I was emailing Ahyiana like, what is this? How do you do this? And Ahyiana was like, girl, just download this, edit it on GarageBand. And I was like, child, I figured it out. Okay. So now, benefit of that is that now people reach out to me and I can pay it forward. So these
myself included.
Yes. Oh gosh, I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
So we can pay it forward. And this conversation could have got so deeper. I think we're gonna have a part 2. So don't mind me, because we didn't get into how competition when it comes to dating and what that looks like, because that's a whole you did
whole nother beast.
Another hour if we would have got into dating, and maybe that's what we'll do. Maybe y'all let me know in the comments, or shoot us a DM if y'all want to hear the part 2 of what dating does in Women in Competition, because boy, that's a book. That's a book in itself. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you to our listeners for listening. Y'all know what to do. If you like this podcast, please subscribe. You might want to slide this in somebody's DMs who just might need to listen to it real quick. And always, always be a woman who embraces her legacy. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Embrace Her Legacy podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please make sure to subscribe and visit embraceherlegacy.com to make a donation or sign up to become a part of our community of volunteers and supporters, the Embrace Her Legacy Collective. Make sure you follow us at Embrace Her Legacy to get daily inspiration and join our movement. Thank you for listening, and remember, you're enough, you're worthy, and you're a phenomenal woman who embraces her legacy.